Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parenting Tips for the Millennial Age. I'm Loyla Louvis, and today we are talking with Ashley Elliott about dealing with negative emotions. We all know that we are dealing with very unusual times, and we're home. We've brought our businesses home, our children are home. We didn't anticipate it, we weren't prepared for it, and yet here we are. So, being that myself as a parenting and life coach, and Ashley, who is a life coach and deals with family and relationship and marriage, we feel that there is a real, the point of connection is emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to introduce you. I want to introduce the group to Ashley and have you, if you would, Ashley, introduce yourself to the group. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. So, my husband and I have recently launched a, business on the side where we do life coaching. So, we've worked with couples for over a decade in different formats. We've had a grant where we were marriage educators, but he's a pastor and I am a faculty member at a small university here in Southern Indiana. And so, we, like you said, we're at home. My husband's home. We're all trying to work and we have 3 boys who were very busy. So I've got some sun because we've been outside today and we've had such a great time, but it has been wild and the emotions have been hot. And so this material it's great content. It's content that I know really well, but knowing it doesn't make living it that much easier because the emotions still fly. So
Right.
just know anything that I share, I'm right there with you in the struggle zone. And so it's really good to have the education though, because I'm able to teach my kids and we talk through it and we work through it. And we're like, yes, we've got to remember, that we are more in control than we feel sometimes. And so, but yeah, my husband and I have gone through, some grief. And so we do grief coaching and we also have worked with couples with relationships and whatnot. So yeah, 3 little boys and what'd you say?
Can you just share for a minute, just so our viewers know what was the grief that you experienced?
Yeah. So back in 2015, 2016, and 2017, my husband and I faced miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And so we'd had our 2 boys, and then we were surprisingly pregnant. And then we lost those pregnancies and ended up going through a lot of specialties. You go into treatment and end up doing very, very expensive treatment and got our last son. And so we took a year off to celebrate him. And so he is almost 2 now. So we've been spending the last year saying we want to turn it around and not just mope because we could do that. And it could be hard just functioning. But we decided we want to take our grief and use our story to help other people share their story and move through their grief. And so, yeah, we've heard so many great stories of people doing the same. And so it's kind of that pay it forward. We want to, pull people up from the hard places that they're in. And so, yeah, definitely that's been a big piece of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, okay, so tonight we are talking about emotions, strong emotions, which ties in with loss,
Mhm.
with not only loss of in life as we go through different experiences, whether it's miscarriage or divorce or job loss or right now it like life changing on a dime.
Yeah.
So everybody's feeling strong emotions. Not only are we going to feeling them now, but we're going to feel them again in the future. We've experienced it in the past. This is, this has come before and it's going to come again.
Yeah.
So what have you learned? What can you share with us about strong emotions, about negativity, about all the strong feelings that we feel?
Yeah. So those negative emotions that we experience, kind of like what are those emotions? So typically like we think, anger, sadness, all of these, terrible things that we go through, evoke those negative emotions. But we also have the positive emotions. And so I wanted to kind of start by thinking about, the difference between our positive and our negative emotions, because that's really part of the key is kind of reframing our mind. And so the positive emotions are, their happiness, joy, the love that we feel and the excitement and contentment, being bold. All of these things are, these positive feelings or positive emotions that we have. But we tend to see that the positive are good and the negative are bad. But in reality, the negative emotions and the positive emotions can be the flip. So the positive emotions, if we spend too much time just focusing on trying to be happy, we might work ourselves sick to reach
Mm,
happiness. Or if we are full of fear and we live in fear, it's actually going to be really hard. But if we don't ever acknowledge that there are actually some good elements to even fear, if we
mm,
don't see that, then we might run away from it and try to ignore it. And so really looking at the fact that the positive emotions can be both positive and negative, and the negative emotions can be positive or negative. Maybe there really shouldn't be the positive and negative, but when we just think about it, it's automatic. We think, oh, fear, bad, happiness, good. And so
mm,
kind of just changing our mindset to think through that is something that I really haven't taught. I haven't heard taught. I've heard people say, "Oh, there's positive emotions, or it's good," or "What do you do?" Like you said, like what do you do with negative emotions?
mm,
And so even just changing our mindset to say, when I feel angry, instead of being mad at myself or feeling shame for being angry, let me just ask the question, what's the good in feeling this emotion?
mm,
So I'll ask that question. You kind of pose that out there for a minute. So we'll talk about fear for just a minute. We've all faced a lot of fear in the last week. So what is the good in fear? So what is the good, right? You can think about that a second. You really don't think that there's anything good in fear unless you really dissect it. So if you kind of imagine being at home and you've had a long day working, you sit down or you lay down to go to sleep, and all of a sudden you smell something. Your adrenaline is not going to let you go to sleep. You are going to be up, you are going to be looking around that house. And if you end up, having that energy and you use it and you go outside and you see there's a fire or a truck or something that's got its engine on fire, your fear dissipates and then you can go to bed and you can fall asleep. But if we don't find the source, then we end up struggling. And so a big piece is looking for a source. Why do I feel this fear? So kind of take the current circumstances, right? I feel fearful that I'm going to be expected to perform at the same level with 3 kids at home, and I can't handle that. Or I fear that I'm going to get sick or get someone else sick. And so if we look at those fears and ask ourselves, why do I feel them? Then we can do something about it. But sometimes we just run because we feel like that's a negative emotion. I shouldn't feel it. And that can be hard for us. And so my encouragement, my big takeaway from the evening is, accept your emotions and look at them and try to say, what are they teaching me? Because our emotions will teach us so much. And so I kind
right.
of get to in a little bit. We don't have to always follow them though. But yeah, go ahead.
What I hear you saying is that negative emotions aren't always negative.
Right. Yeah. So fear, I mean, you take fear, like what's the purpose of fear? For the most part, a lot of the time, fear is going to protect us. So you take someone who's been abused and they in a relationship and they have a hard time looking at other relationships. That's to protect them. They're like, I don't ever want to date again. I am not going there. And that's a protective mechanism that will help them. Now, if they can get some treatment, get some therapy, get some coaching, and kind of work through some of that, and they say, this was what stole my joy. This is what stole my ability to trust. And this is what made me walk in fear. Then we can learn, I'm going to look for that in a relationship and say, that's not going to work for me. Kind of from a parenting standpoint, we can look at our kids. And if we feel, all of these negative emotions, like, well, why do I feel, if it's disrespected or frustrated, why do I feel those, emotions? So for me, my frustration with my kids oftentimes comes from, repeatedly telling them the same things over and over again. And so I'm frustrated that they are not listening. And so if you kind of look at like what's behind the frustration or the emotion, then a lot of times there's a disrespect. I feel like you don't respect me. And so if we then can turn it around and ask for what we want, and we can get on their level and say, do you respect me? Because usually when they're calm, they're going to say yes. And think, well, do you believe that your behavior is, showing that you respect? And whenever I ask you the first time to go do your homework, I don't need disrespect. I need respect, especially in this time. I've been coaching my son. We've been getting spring break. We have a little extended spring break. I'm like, next week, when I ask you to go do your homework, you're going to have a different attitude because you have to help the family. If you don't help the family, then the family is not going to be as happy, and we want to be happy. So we're just trying to coach each other. We all have to work together because their emotions or my emotions, we can really set each other off. And so we're the parents, so we have to be the ones that work a little harder to coach them and guide them, but we can involve them, through the process of, becoming aware of their emotions.
So let's talk a little bit about emotions. Why
Yeah.
don't you walk us through some of the emotions and how we should navigate those strong feelings?
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about fear, so you feel fear if it's protecting. So you ask the question, what's the purpose? And then you analyze. And so if we move on to, let's say, anger, this is another one, say, hot topic with kiddos. Okay. So the same question you'd ask, why do I feel angry? So again, we can ask that question. Is there anything good to being angry? So are there any events that's happened in the world that come to y'all's mind when you think of people who've been angry? So when I start thinking about it, you think women's rights, people, being able to make moves to, eliminate discrimination, people, when they get so angry, they decide to act, that anger can be a good thing. I know a lot of times we don't want to have, communication. We don't want to deal with conflict. And so sometimes we get angry, and that would be our emotion, and it can lead us to act. And so that can be a good thing. But initially, I would say, if I were showing you some cards and saying, which is this anger a good or a bad emotion? Then we see that it is, in our minds, it's a bad emotion. And so whenever we feel fear, we start to feel shame. When we feel angry, we start to feel shame. And when we feel shame, we want to avoid it, or we want to run away from it. We want to stuff it and tell ourselves, don't go there, don't feel it, don't tell anyone. And then what happens is we kind of mention this like emotional jug that's just waiting to explode because we're stuffing it down. And so if you're feeling the feeling of the emotion anger, then you ask, why do I feel angry? And then what can I do about it? And so, I feel angry because if it's the disrespect, or because you're not, doing what I say the first time. A lot of times for parents, we feel that way. And so asking what it is, really evaluating, what's going on is definitely a big piece. So you feel the emotion, you let it teach you, you don't run away from it. So you accept it, you don't let it fill you with shame, and then you let it teach you, and then you'd act differently. So
Okay,
I
so
have,
stop you there
yeah, go
for
ahead.
let me stop you for a second to say, if you are watching now, right, either as a replay or you're watching live, what are the emotions that you find yourself struggling with the most? Or what do you see in your child, that you feel like this is a strong emotion and I'm not quite sure how to navigate the journey getting back to regulation and peace and joy? So let us know either now or in the replay, and we'll make sure that we get answers for you, because what I'm hoping to do for you is to help you navigate the journey of parenting, so that whether the emotions are high or low, you find balance, right? Because
Mhm.
peace is found in balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue on,
Yeah.
Ashley.
And even kind of going off of that, definitely whenever we have change and all that we've gone through in our world, it is a trauma that we have gone through as a world. And so our stability is shaken a bit, so we want balance, but this is kind of how our days are feeling, like going up and down, up and down. And so just giving ourselves the grace to experience the emotions is important. Now, I don't want to just stop there and say, that we have, all of these emotions that we just have to completely listen to them. We should listen to them as teachers, but we don't want to be just completely led by our emotions. So we've talked about fear and anger, but I want to talk about a positive emotion for a quick second. So even if you look at the emotion of happiness, like what's behind happiness? Sometimes we're seeking happiness as Americans, especially people, you can talk about this like white picket fence lifestyle that they want. And is that what brings us happiness? Is it stuff? And we're seeing this as we're watching our global economy, kind of dissipate. We have to remember that, are we chasing the emotion of happiness and that's what's important to us, or does happiness come from some other place? Because if we have too much seeking after happiness, we might work more than we need to. We might ignore, our family. We might drink ourselves silly because, oh, that's what makes me forget all my pain and feel happy. And so looking at even the positive emotions and what we're doing, saying, is that really making me truly, whatever the emotion is it really bringing the good, or is it bringing the bad? So I have 3 A's to help us gain some emotional intelligence, so an awareness and insight to our emotions. And so the first one is becoming aware. So like I said, just being willing to pay attention to your emotions, accepting them instead of completely just looking away, especially with our negative ones. We don't really want to accept it. And then we're going to assess. We're going to ask ourselves the question, what behavior, if I respond, to this, will I be most happy with later? So is my current behavior working for me? So if we're angry and then we explode, I know for me, when I raise my voice at my kids, sometimes it's all too effective. And so I need to assess, is it effective? Yes, but is there another way? And so the third A, so we have aware and assess and then act. So what do I need to do next? So if I know, I'm aware that I'm angry, I assess it, I know that it works, and then I want to act, well, I want to act differently. I want to find a different thing that works. So I'm going to work on that assessment piece where I'm going to say, what is it that also could work? And so for me, having my kids work through, their own anger issues or their things that they know that they don't listen about can help them and help me as I try to regulate my emotions. So
Okay,
definitely a challenge there. Yeah, go ahead.
let me ask you, how do you help your children go from angry to peaceful?
That's
What's
a great question. So one of the things, and this is from my husband, he's really good at de-escalating. So I was teaching my kids about an escalator the other day, and I, kind of did the visual. I was like, what does an elevator do? It goes up, or an escalator goes up. And so I was teaching them what the word escalate means. And it's like, I want you to visualize yourself going up the escalator. This is what we're doing whenever we're becoming angry. And I want you to visualize yourself turning around and going back down the escalator.
Mm,
Because as a family, we're on the escalator together
mm,
and we want to come back down. We want to come de-escalate. And so I've been trying to teach them about that process. And so I had a time this past week where my older son said, I'm trying to come back down the de-escalator. Trying to de-escalate. And he didn't use that word, but he's like, I'm trying to come back down. But that was a positive trigger for me. That was a reminder to me that he was trying to bring it back down. And that was really helpful. So, but other things that I have done is to try to ask, getting back to my husband's thing that he said, that he, asks, what do you need from me? And I think that's such a great question. Whenever we as parents see that our children are kind of downward spiraling, they actually turn it back around a lot faster than we do most of the time. They can go from being frustrated to going back to playing more quickly, at least than I can. Typically my kids can. And so if I remember to get down on their level and ask them, what do you need from me? How can mommy help you? And then that's kind of getting to the question, like, what are you feeling? And not, not us being angry at them for being angry, even if it's about us, but asking them, so that we can help them appropriately express their emotions. And that can be helpful, but that takes us being like almost like little birds sitting and watching and being less sensitive. And so on my best days, I can do that beautifully. But a lot of times, especially in high stress, then in the moment, I'll just say, you're going to go to timeout because I can't handle it right now, and I think that that's okay, because we're as long as we're not screaming and yelling at them, we sometimes aren't going to be the best versions of ourselves. But if we are consistently asking them those questions when they're heightened, will help them regulate themselves. And so that's what I've found.
What I love that you said is coming alongside our child in their high emotions and saying, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
That is such a beautiful point of connection where they least expect it.
Yeah.
And our ability to do that, I think, also regulates us at the same time. When
Mm-hmm.
we have the empowerment to be able to do that for our children, I think it takes them from their very high place and us from our very frustrated place and kind of equalizes it right back out.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
I love that you said that. It's a great point of connection.
Thank you. Thanks.
So what else do you want, like as a like a summary for this day and this age in this time in our circumstances? What's your what do you want people to take away, from all your resources?
Yeah.
What do you want people to know?
Yeah. I definitely think for me, what I'm seeing people need is the accepting that experiencing fear, experiencing negative emotions, experiencing anything that doesn't feel good is okay. We don't have to shame ourselves for it, but asking ourselves, are we living in fear? Because there's a difference between experiencing anger and living angry, and experiencing fear and
Mm,
living a fearful life, experiencing happiness and living a happy life. We want to experience the positive emotions, but oftentimes to do so, we have to be willing to accept those negative emotions. That doesn't mean that anybody likes fear. Nobody, some people kind of like fears. They might go and they scare each other and they find that enjoyable, or they go to haunted houses or things. But for the most part, people don't really want, those fearful experiences. But saying, I'm not going to live my life where I'm so afraid that I can't go there. So it's kind of that idea of being current. I'm not sure if you've heard that. That's a term we've heard in marriage area. And I don't know who the credit is. I've looked it up all over. So if anybody knows, let me know. But this idea that if you have some things that are undealt with, whether it's grief or loss, or if it's conflict in a relationship, you're not current. So I think sometimes we're not current with our emotions. And so if all of a sudden someone jumps out and scares us and we're like, stop it, and we get so angry, it's because maybe there's been some other things that have caused us to feel fearful. And similar to, the PTSD, some of the like fireworks for, people who've had a lot of gunshots exposed to them, they're triggers for us. And so if we can work through some of those things, then it can, kind of help us to adjust and say, I am current with my negative emotions or all of my emotions so that I can face it. So allowing ourselves to experience the emotions, but not having to live through that emotion. So we don't have to live angry or live a fearful life, but allowing ourselves to feel that. And then but that takes the courage of looking at it. And so that's my big takeaway. Take time. My 3 A's were be aware, assess, and then act. And so if you're, taking the time to say, I've had these, grief experiences or these anger experiences or these fearful experiences, take time to look at it and then free yourself so that you don't live in that emotion and you just experience that emotion.
yeah, not living in the emotion. Love it. Okay, well, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
I know you've got your website is what, well, why don't you tell people how they can contact you if they'd like to learn more or work with you?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. So our website is elliottLifeCoaching.com, and it's Elliott with two L's and two T's. And so it's elliottLifeCoaching.com. And we have, quite a few free resources. We have a YouTube channel. We have, most of the major social media platforms where you can follow us there if you're interested. But then we also have a couple of online courses. We have a free course called Do Hard Things, and we all could sign up for that one because we're all doing hard things right now. Just living the day-to-day lifestyle is hard right now, but it's about goal setting and looking, inward to the good things that we've done and helping us to be able to do hard things in our life. And then we also have, some other like coaching options and an online course called Love and Loss that we developed, and so that's accessible on our website. So yeah, so you can subscribe to our website if you want to get our monthly emails, and you just stay connected. But yeah, we'd love to connect with y'all. And it's Ashley. You can email me too at ashley@elliottLifeCoaching.com, and it's Ashley, ASHLEY.
Beautiful. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Ashley, for being with us.
Yeah, thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, we'll I'll make sure that everybody has your information if they want to get in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
Nice chatting with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.